Okay, so we're going to actually break this into three separate videos. We're going to go through the routed VLANs in this video, then we're going to go through router on a stick, and then we're going to talk about the correct routing and how we route between sites. And then we'll go from there. So we'll start first with our routed VLANs. So in our routed VLANs, you can see here I've created four separate subnets. We got 192.168.0.0, 10.20.30, all/24, and then I've given each one of these a VLAN ID. What I've also done is I pre-programmed all these so that you can see here I've given them all the information, dot 2 for all the computers, dot 1 will be for these ports. But I have not programmed anything in the router, so we're going to walk through all that. The big thing about these is I've noticed a lot of you guys are doing this to get more Ethernet ports in the router. You're bringing in these right here, the 4 switching ports, and switching ports are very different than routed ports. So these other two, they're in this, like this case 1921, those are routed ports, whereas these are switching ports. In the real world, you can actually get extra routing modules, so you don't have to worry about this. But unfortunately, in Packet Tracer, we're kind of limited, so we have to do a sort of workaround to make this work. So how we do that is we're going to come over here. We're going to go into our CLI for this router. We're going to configure router 0. There's nothing here. As you can see, it's the default configuration. So we're going to get in. We're going to configure it. We're going to give it a host name first. We're going to call it, R0. There we go. And so what we've done here is if you actually go back here and take a look, let's start with this first VLAN. So we got PC0, it's connecting into the router in FA000. So that's where we need the first program. So let's see here, we're going to go into interface FA000. And if you see here, if we look at this, you see there's no IP commands listed at all because again, these are switching ports, these are not IP ports. Because these are layer 2, not layer 3. So what we have to do is we actually have to turn these into, we have to assign the VLANs to these. So what we're going to need to do here is we're going to need to go and do switch port. And then we have to say mode. In this case, we're going to do access. Press enter, and then we're going to do switch port, access, and if you look here, we can do VLAN, and then we have to set the VLAN ID. So because we're using 000, we're going to set this one to VLAN 10. And there we go, we got VLAN 10. As you can see here, this went into orange instead of green. It'll take it a second here, and then you see I fast forwarded time, it came back up. Just because we're making a change, it needs to toggle states. So let's go back into interface FA0/0/1. Remember, in Cisco, everything starts at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're going to go in here. We're going to do switch port, mode, access, and then switch port, access, and then we're going to say VLAN 20. And we're going to go into interface FA002. And we can just use the up command to save us some time. Switch port mode access, switch port mode VLAN 30. Oops. And you can see here, I do that sometimes myself. It's 4, it's actually 3. Switch port mode access VLAN 40. Switch port mode access. Okay. So now all this stuff is going to be configured, but again, we don't have any IP information. So right now, if I do a show IP brief, you can see, there's no IP addresses assigned to these, but we can't assign IP addresses. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to create more VLAN interfaces, and we're going to give those IP addresses. So we're going to go config T. We're going to do interface VLAN 10. And you can see here, it created VLAN 10 for us. It turned it up, and now we're just in an interface config. If we hit the question mark, you can see we have IP addresses and all that stuff, just like a normal interface. So we do IP address 192.168.0.1, 255.255.255.0. Okay. And now if I really want to test it, I can use do and then do ping 192.168.0.2, and I should be able to hit my computer. Again, the first ping will always fail because that's where it's still establishing its actual network connectivity and trying to figure out what path it needs to go. And then you can see the other 4 succeeded. So basically, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to go here, interface VLAN 20. And again, it creates the interface for us. It turns it up. And then what we're going to need to do is we need to give it an IP address, which in this case is that. We're going to do VLAN 30. And then we're going to give it the .2 IP address. And then we're going to do VLAN 40. And we're going to give it that one the 3 address. There. Simple as that. So now if we do end here, we do a show IP int brief, you can see now we have these new interfaces. We have 10, 20, 30, and 40. So if we're going to each one of these computers, we go command prompt, we do a ping, in this case it's 192, oops, 192.168.1.1. You can see we can actually ping the switch. But what happens when we try to ping this computer over here, PC0, 192.168.0.2? Everything works. And that's because the router knows how to route in between all of those because they're on switch. So that's all we need to do for this to get all of these different ones working.